Good afternoon, everybody. It's Shawn Shewchuk. How are you? And listen, as always, when we do these things, you guys will have to excuse me. I've got a touch of a cold. When we do these things, we've done a ton of them over the course of the last couple of weeks, but this is a special one. A lot of you have been waiting for this. I've received, I'm going to say probably about 700 likes and comments on this post for this live. And as all of you know, we're doing a really crazy event, something that we've been talking about for a very long time, and it's coming up in just over 2 weeks. So what I promised you last week was that we would have the one, the only, the incredible, crazy busy, more so than I am sometimes, Shark Tank's original Kevin Harrington. So Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Hey, Shawn, it's a pleasure to be here. And, you travel a bunch like you do. I do. Sometimes you get a little bit under the weather, but you got to keep plugging. So, but in 2 weeks, we're both going to be perfect.
100% bang on. So this event we're doing, and you and I are speaking at and working with some of these incredible folks on. And by the way, welcome to all you guys jumping on board. I'm seeing the numbers starting to climb up. Thank you very much for that. Kevin, we talked about influence, and this goes back a long time. This is probably almost a year ago you and I were talking about this. What is influence, and how does it play into building a business?
So, influence is, at the end of the day, in my mind, it's the difference between success and failure, really, because it's when, I call it kind of, when you build your influence, you're building your brand, whether it's your personal brand or your business brand. You're building the assets that underlie the business that you have, no matter what business you're in. So it gives you the power to be able to influence people to come in your direction, right? There's so many different ways you can look at it, but if you're a speaker and you have influence, when you are speaking somewhere, people are going to want to be there. They're going to want to hear you. They're going to want to listen to you. So, and as we talk about social media influencers, these are folks that have a following and they have the ability to channel their messaging to their followers, and then they have massive movement, whether it be buying their products, attending events, or whatever. But influence it becomes a major asset of your business ultimately.
Do you think that influencers, when they look to up-level their game, that they do it differently than the average person? Because to be very clear, if you want to attract the right people into your life, you really need to up-level your influence. The late, great Jim Rohn said, you're the sum total of the top 5 people you associate with the most. So when you put yourself into the right group of people, does that change the dynamic of when we talk about up-leveling influence?
Yes, absolutely. When you think of it this way, people that aren't hanging out with, millionaires or billionaires, they're not challenged as much, right? So, it's when you start hanging with the big dog, so to speak, that you start getting introduced and invited to bigger events, bigger spheres of influence, and making connections into people that have their own networks of influence. So I think in today's world, influencers are influencing other influencers, and that's when you're rising to the top, and as opposed to individuals. So and you can look at it from this standpoint. Let's take LinkedIn, for example. You can accept one person at a time on LinkedIn, or you can join groups of influence. And I joined an influential entrepreneurial group that had hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs that were in that group. Well, they had influence with those folks. I ended up joining and becoming part of that and creating influence and posts, and lots of posts and a lot of aggressive activities. And that rose to the top for me in terms of getting a lot of those people, and tens of thousands of followers came from those activities, not just onesie, twosie, dozen. So it definitely brings your game to a whole new level.
I agree with you. It's very interesting. One of the things, and it's very interesting, I told this story earlier this week. we had some folks who come to our office. So just for all of you watching, whether now or in the future, I'm based out of Calgary, Canada. We have an office and a training center here, and we had some folks who were local, and we do a lot of work all over North America. But there were some local folks that had come in to see us, and their target audience for their business was mid to large. But they said they were going to B&I groups. Now, I've interviewed and I know Dr. Ivan Meisner, and he's an incredibly brilliant man, but that's their wrong area. And so when you put yourself into the right group, it starts to automatically elevate. As a matter of fact, Kevin, this is interesting. There's new studies that now show and prove that neural pathways are created by what we observe. So if you're putting yourself, don't get me the wrong way, I have nothing opposed to someone having a glass of wine with dinner, but when you are sitting at the same bar for 20 years next to whomever Joe is pounding back a beer, those neural pathways are created. We wonder why our fortunes are identical to those we're sitting next to.
Exactly.
If you're going to put yourself, I always say this, and you know what, I've been very fortunate and blessed in life, but if I'm the smartest guy in the room, I'm in the wrong room.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I'll give you another analogy, really. 5 years ago, I did very little speaking. And one day Microsoft had called and said, hey, would you mind coming out and talking to some of our senior executives? And I thought, well, what a great invitation. I went out, knocked their socks off. And when I left, the senior VP took me to the elevator and said, Kevin, I kept waiting for you to tell me that you were going to charge for this. We would have paid you a fee, but you did it for free. And I'm like, wait a minute, people get paid to do this? Okay. So I'm like, wow. So first of all, I didn't even know that. And, thus a new industry was born for me. But the point is that I've gone to some events that were total bust out in terms of getting any business or any relationships that made any sense for me. And I scratched them off the list. I don't care if they pay me. I'm not going back to that one. But I've been to other events that were just powerful. The minute I got off stage, I got 20, 30, 50 people that came to me with ideas, with products, with this, with that. And, it's very clear to see that when you get with the right people and you have that influence with the right people, that your life can be changed in very positive ways and very powerful.
100%. And I get asked questions a lot. When I step off stage, people say, well, it's easy for you, Shawn. And I'll share a story. I've told this a couple of times. You don't know this yet, Kevin. When I met you a couple of years ago, we were at an event. I think it was Traffic and Conversion in San Diego.
San Diego, I think.
And you and I were chatting, and there was, we took a picture, shook hands or something, and I walked away when we were finished. And two young guys came up to me. They're like, do you know Kevin Harrington? I said, yes. And they're like, well, how did you meet him? I said, I shook his hand. They're like, but he's a TV star. And what we fail to understand, and you are, and I'm not taking anything away from you, but I think what we need to understand, what most people need to understand is if you don't stick your hand out, if you don't have a conversation, you don't have what it takes. Big deals are not done. There's this idea that big deals, I can put an ad on Craigslist, or, in Canada, there's another one called Kijiji. Big deals are done over a coffee. They're done over a glass of wine. They're done over dinner. And they're done on a handshake when you look someone in the eye. So yeah. Influence Live. On the screen right now, folks, you see this. It says Influence Live 2017. That initial conversation that Kevin Harrington and I had, as it's morphed into this crazy event. 2.5 weeks from now, somewhere around 200 of the top influencers in North America are going to descend on San Diego, the Westin in Gaslamp Quarter. We are going to spend the entire weekend with Kevin Harrington, Woman Entrepreneur of the Year, Kim Orlesky, Sean Roach, Davin Michaels, and myself, of course. And we are going to be talking about influence, and you are going to be building your influence blueprint. Listen, there are a lot of good events. Kevin Harrington talked about some that are good, some that aren't. But the reason we do this is so that when you walk out Sunday night, you actually have a blueprint, something that you could, and you're going to work through that with all the teachers, all the speakers, including Kevin Harrington and myself. Think about this. We weren't given a roadmap. Most entrepreneurs today aren't entrepreneurs. And as Michael E. Gerber says, they're technicians having an entrepreneurial seizure. And I smile and I laugh with that, because the reality is most people quit their job, buy another one, and work more in their so-called business than on it. And we all got into business because we wanted to achieve a certain level of freedom. Freedom is defined, Kevin, you and I have talked about this, as the ability to do what you want, when you want, and with who you want. We want you to hit that. So there's a whole bunch more people jumping on. Thank you so much for joining Kevin Harrington and myself. We're talking about influence and how influence impacts your business. The one more thing I want to share this, and Kevin, you and I talked about this too, is when you attend events, you're there to contribute because there are a ton of incredible people there. When you're there to share, what happens? You get it back.
First of all, I'm the kind of guy, I've done billions in sales over the years, made plenty of money over the years. Yeah, I gave a little bit back here and there on some bad deals too, but I've saved quite a bit of it, right? So, I mean, no event or deal is going to change my lifestyle. And I've spent now the last few years of my life, Zig Ziglar said it best. If you want to get everything you want in life, help enough other people get what they want in life. And so this is sort of my new direction. I had my 61st birthday on October 15th, just a couple of weeks ago, right? Or, not even 2 weeks. And so I said, I spent my first 30 years figuring out what I wanted to do. And then I got into the TV business. And I spent the next 30 years building billions of dollars worth of businesses. And now I'm going to spend the next 30 helping other people get what they want. And so this is really what I'm there to do. I'm there to embrace, to meet, to teach, to empower. I was in Zurich, Switzerland yesterday, and I left there in the morning. I got here last night back in Tampa, Florida. And when I was in Zurich, a couple people said, "Hey, I'm writing a book. Would you give me a testimonial for the book?" And boom, all of a sudden there was 5 people that wanted that. And I said, I've got to see the manuscript because I want to believe that you've got a great book. But yeah, so that's just something that by me being there, we're going to be helping people with their books and getting their books into some cool distribution. I said, and by the way, now that you've got one of the original sharks giving you a testimonial, use that to go get some of the highest and best testimonials that you were afraid to go after from here. So yeah, I mean, I'm coming to San Diego to teach, to empower, and to share. And I'm gonna go back to the 30-some years ago, from the very beginning, the ups and the downs, because you learn a lot from your mistakes and your failures. So we're gonna be going through all of that, and then hanging out, taking some pictures, and doing some fun stuff, and kind of chilling a little bit. So as you said, it's going to be a whole weekend full of excitement.
It is, and there's one more thing for those. So listen, I've put something together really crazy. Kevin is probably, and you know this from watching him on Shark Tank, he's probably one of the best negotiators I think I've had the privilege to meet. So he twisted my arm hard before we went live. He said, we have to do something cool. So we are. If you want to attend Influence Live, and I'm going to put this up on the screen again, go to the website, influencelive.com, scroll down to where it says register now. At the top left-hand side, there's a button that says webinar, 99 cents. So this event was $197 to attend. We have decided to do this for a very limited time. You can attend right now. Go there, 99 cents.
Wow.
Let me tell you something. Putting on an event like this, Kevin, those of you watching now or in the future, what it costs to put on an event. There's hundreds of thousands of dollars that goes into this. But the purpose of this is to help you up-level your game.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say, when we shot Shark Tank, believe it or not, Mark Burnett put $1 million into the set because he said, this is what ABC Network is going to want. And when I saw that set, I knew he had put the money in to make this a network quality show. This was no cable show that he was doing, right? So you've got to, if you want to run with the big dogs, you got to play with them. You got to roll in the same areas that they're rolling in, right?
Now, if you go there to this website, Influence Live, scroll to the bottom, and it says register as a VIP. It's the second option. That, my friends, we've also dropped it by $200. So you get to attend for $297. When you attend, and here's the key, you get to have a working lunch with all the speakers, but you also get to have a working lunch with Kevin Harrington. So you get to have lunch with a shark. You saw something come up on the screen a little while ago that said lunch with a shark. You get to have lunch with a shark on one of the days of the event. That's what this is really about. I want you to think about this. One thought, one idea, one golden nugget that'll catapult your business in 2018. When you work with the right people, when you put your time in, invest that time, your ROI is immeasurable. If there's somebody listening right now, Kevin, that says, yeah, you know what? I've seen Harrington on TV. Shewchuk's always online. He's doing events. Why is this right for me? Do you have a suggestion or an answer?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. Number one, I'm going to give you a lot of content that you don't get online, number one. But number two, I'm actually looking for deals, and I invest money in deals at events like this. I find products at events like this. I find service businesses at events like this. And, I don't want to act like I'm bringing my checkbook to write the check right there, but literally I'm shaking hands, cutting deals at events like this. So if you have a business and you're looking for capital, you're looking to take it to the next step, I'm interested. And there's only one way to find out if I'm going to play in your sandbox, and that's to come on down, because as far as the money goes, this is an unbelievable deal to offer people to get in for that kind of. It's virtually free to come on in.
Okay, guys, you heard this. It's 99 cents to go there. If you want a VIP, you want to do a working lunch with all the trainers and speakers, including a working lunch with Shark Tank's original Kevin Harrington, you need to go as a VIP. There are not a lot of seats left. We're just over 2 weeks out. If you want to, you need to go to the website, influencelive.com, and register right now. And you heard it here first. Kevin Harrington is going to sit with you. If you're sitting across from him at lunch and you have an idea, a product, an initiative that you want to have a conversation about, what better than to sit across from someone who's built an empire in the billions and get advice, direction, and maybe even a partnership.
Fantastic.
Kevin, I want to thank you for coming on, and I also want to thank you for being part of the event coming up in a couple of weeks. For those of you, there's a whole bunch of you that have jumped on as we've gone through this broadcast. Thank you. Go to influencelive.com. Darren Jacklin, who's speaking at the event, he said something. We did a Facebook Live last week, I think. He said, this is the Super Bowl of events. So you guys need to be there. Hey, Adrian, thanks for jumping on. Yes, you're going to be there too. And he's looking forward to meeting with you. Adrian is one of our clients. We just had a conversation about him building a $100 million company he's working on right now. So this stuff is key. For all of you, thank you for joining us. Have an incredible afternoon. Joe, thanks for joining us. See you there. See you guys in San Diego. Thanks, Kevin. We'll chat very soon.
Thumbs up, Shawn. Good job, man. Look forward to seeing everybody out there. Bye-bye.
Talk to you very soon.